Officially 101. We'll start the meeting at 101. And we would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in the Robinson-Huron Treaty Territory and that the land on which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Ashenabek, specifically the Garden River and Batchewana First Nations, as well as the Métis people. Roll call, Ian, Lisa, Eva is away. Marchie, Chief Deputy, Sarah, Lincoln, and Tom. Did I miss anybody? Inspector Duguay. Inspector Duguay. Thank you. Any conflicts of interest? Seeing none. Move on to number 5. Questions and information arising out of the minutes and not otherwise on the agenda. Any questions, information? Seeing none. The adoption of the minutes. I need a mover and a seconder for the minutes. Sarah, move, and Ian, second. Okay. Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting as presented be hereby approved. Number 7, motion to accept the agenda. Moved by Marchie, seconded by Ian. Resolved that the agenda of the regular meeting as presented be hereby approved. All in favor? Approved. Chief, communications and reports, information.
Thank you, everyone. I'm just going to give you a little preface. I got a bit of a head cold, so if I'm shouting or can't hear you, that's the reason for it. I feel like I'm talking out of a bubble, but I've got through that before. So we'll start off with your board account ledger. As you can see on the screen, there's been no changes, so nothing to speak to on that particular point. Then I'll take you, Lincoln jumps me over to your 2023 monthly overtime costs, where we do a 5-year comparison. You'll see in the left column, we were at 110,523 for overtime last month. We're down significantly, about 40,000 from 110 to 70 in February, or 71. And we're less for February than last February by a good 13,000. Go to the next, you'll see the 3-year monthly staff shortage overtime costs. You can see in January, we're at 23. We're down about 9,000 to 14,000 this month. If we look comparatively to 2022, we only had 5,000. We've had a number of occurrences, and we've also had significant sick time. A lot of it attributed to the crud that I'm currently experiencing. And we chatted at our discussion about this, and a lot of folks are taking sick time now when they get colds, much like the COVID thing affected us, and they stay at home when they're sick, which is their entitlement to do so. And so that's part of the explanation there. If you go to 23 staff shortage overtime costs, you see we had 20,000 in patrol in January, and we're down a good 13,000 simply due to staff shortages, which explains partially some of the sick time costs that we experienced in February. That's the explanation on there. There's no questions.
Nope.
We'll go to our year-end stats. So I think as we chatted last board meeting, it takes a little bit while for them to clear the tanks and get the entire year completed. And so this is a really good overall comparator between years in terms of the entire complement of occurrences. So you'll see that assaults were up about 10% when we compare ourselves to 2021. We went from 682 to 750. Our sex assaults are up about 10% from 111 to 122. Our homicides went down 1 from 4 to 3. We're consistent on our attempts at 2 and 2. Our robberies, I think, is very noticeable. We went from 118 in 21 to 66, or down 44%, as well as our offensive weapons went from 78 to 55, or 30%. Good news story, when we look on a year's data on crimes of property, we see break and enters went down 24%, 875 to 668. We see residential went down 24%. The other type of break and enters went down 42%, and that includes everything that isn't a business and a residence. So, for example, sheds, churches, schools, anything that isn't technically a residential or a business. Theft of motor vehicle is also down 13%. We went from 187 to 162. Thefts, which are a very high occurrence when you see it, 2540 and 21 to 2368 and 22 is down 7%. Mischiefs are down. Frauds are up 560 to 684. The drugs are small numbers, so 6 to 1 on heroin, which the small numbers are not, it says 83%, but when you're dealing with such small numbers, the percentage may overinflate the thought. Cocaine is consistent at 6% down, or almost even from 17 to 16. So when we look at the year to date, we can say confidently that although our crimes of violence have overall stayed at about the same of a 7% change, we know that our crimes of property have went down overall. When you look at total crimes of property, you're down about 6%. But when you look at some of the ones that cause the public to call and be concerned, we see break and enters are down consistently in the 24% range year to date, with full data set for both years.
Chief, I just have a question. Frauds. Can you explain what's involved in that fraud category?
Well, that would include all frauds. That would include, simple store frauds, or it could also include organized crime online frauds. Bob, could you speak to that a little more?
Sure. Credit card fraud is a big one. High incidence, low values, province-wide. People may live in Sault Ste. Marie, but the perpetrators live elsewhere. Online, of course, frauds online occurring, all those online scams that we warn people about, where people get trapped by.
Yeah.
It's a pretty broad area of fraud. Well, fraud by definition is basically theft, but theft by deceit. So that would include fraud, all various types of frauds.
And that's increasing as we go on.
Well, I think globally it's definitely increasing with the dynamics of social media and the online presence of those fraudsters. But here in the zoo, what was it? I think we're down a little bit, are we? Or no, that's increased 22%. So yeah, so that's indicative of much of the online scams, telephone scams.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Chief, go ahead.
So we'll go to the YOA, or young offenders. This is an interesting thing where we see crimes of violence are up. When we see assaults, 86 to 120, or 40%. Sex assaults are down 10 to 4. Offensive weapons are down, but we have a total of 121 to 142, or a 17% increase. I don't know if that would be statistically significant or simply due to variation, because those numbers are small overall, but it does show that population may be more involved in criminality and may be driving the larger statistics up. When we look at break and enters, we see 1 to 15. Obviously, that's significant. Residential 1 to 10. Thefts, I draw your attention to, went from 25 to 51. So those are concerning, and 20 to 40 in shoplifting.
Mhm.
So one could draw the conclusion that we need to put more effort into our young offenders as a population that are more susceptible to this type of criminality, which is really, subsistence criminality. This isn't organized by any means. Go ahead, Council.
Just a question, Chief. And in the previous reports, you did have the data in terms of young offenders and who has recommitted. Would you be able to
So-
provide that for the year end?
So recidivistic behavior, you
Correct.
meaning,
Because you had like how many females, how many males, in previous years' reports, and
okay,
how many, were,
so we can break it down for you.
yeah, how many
We'll have it for the
recommitted?
next
Yeah.
meeting. It's-
Sure.
It's one of our annual.
Yeah, that's what
things
I'm,
that we
I'm
set
wondering,
up.
because this is another annual report, so that's.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
very helpful.
Very good question, thank you.
And your other CCC, where there's considerable, what's CCC representing?
So Bob, what's, or maybe Sarah on the UCR reporting?
Criminal Code of Canada is what, so criminal code offenses, you've got, you look down the list, you have theft, break and enter, mischief, having stolen goods, fraud, and then other criminal codes. So any other criminal offense that's reported or that wouldn't fit into those other above categories.
So what would be the most common in the other CC?
Yeah, so.
Tell you what, we'll break that one down too.
Yeah,
for
that
you.
would be a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I don't see, yes, well, it would,
I
but
think it
what
would
we'd
be,
like to do is give you the most significant one of those other CC that.
yeah, I think it would be helpful in terms of agencies
Absolutely,
that are serving
Yeah.
youth.
That's exactly
So that they,
what I
that-
thought too.
yeah, I had a meeting yesterday outside of this at the Twin Pad and at the drop-in on another matter, but there's a lot of youth there, and I think giving people some better tools and understanding would be
Yeah.
really a benefit.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Go ahead, Chief.
Okay, what do you got next for me? We're gonna go to, so this one is just January to January, so it's 1 month comparators between the 2 years. So you see it up top there. Make sure I'm on the right one. So we do comparisons for the month of January, year-to-date statistical. Go to the next one, Lincoln. So we're looking at the 2 Januaries between 22 and 23. I'll let you all get there. Here, read along with me. So, you see overall occurrences between the 2 Januaries. We're up 9.6% between 2370 and 2597 on total occurrences, which isn't super significant, but it's something to see that it's a little more than it was last year. We see assaults went from 50 to 60 or 20%. And again, we're dealing with smaller numbers here, so it's limited in its value. Break and enters for the month in 22 went down to 36, 42 to 36, which is 14%. We see residential B&Es went down 22% this January compared to last. We go to theft of motor vehicles. This January, there was more motor vehicle thefts. It went from 15 to 23. Attempt thefts went down from 214 to 125. Theft overall for the month, 111 last year, 49 this year, or 56%. Sudden deaths were comparable between the 2 months at 16 and 17 between the 2 years. Motor vehicle collisions went down about 13% from 219 to 191. So again, that's just the monthly comparison between the 2 years. And that should be the data for this presentation, Mr. Chair.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none?
All right, we'll go on to use of force reports. So you can, Lincoln has up there for you. So over the 2-month period, January to February, we had 5 incidents in January this year, 8 in February, 7 to 16 reports. Double the times we pointed the firearm from 5 to 9. CEW was also up 1 to 4. When we look at the number of use of force reports we put in this month, we had 23 this year, 26 the same time last year. So we're relatively consistent in terms of how much use of force between those two time periods year to year.
And any of those, chief, young offenders, or is that just standard citizens out there? More mature
I'd have to ask the stat people in terms of use of force if the YO piece is captured there. We might have to do a deeper dive and get back to you on the next
Okay.
one.
Chief, what's the difference between firearm pointed, firearm drawn?
So firearm drawn would be when you come to an occurrence and you feel based on your safety, you need to draw your weapon, but not point it at someone and issue the demand. Firearm pointed is obviously the weapon is pointed and the demand is made to drop the weapon or the gun.
Any other questions?
No.
In public complaints, we received 8 new complaints in February, and this time last year we had 10. We have a total of 16 year to date this year, so we're up about 5. And as Bob has mentioned before, we do have some in here that are multiple complainers that
Same
the same person. So we will see. We don't put the name in there, obviously, for privacy issues, but we can tell you there are people that have multiple complaints against the police consistently over time.
Can you just put that maybe next time in the report?
Sure.
If you don't mind, because
So you may not see them all in the same month, but we could put, in brackets, Marchie, this person complained 35 times last year,
Yep.
twice this month, and that we could do that.
that'd be good for you.
But it just shows you the numbers aren't always from
Yeah.
multiple complainants. It can be one person that constantly does it.
It's not a unique individual.
Right.
So if you could
Yeah,
state
so
the unique individuals and the
New
data.
person or
Yeah.
new complainant or
Yeah.
something.
And add to that there are also individuals who have who they themselves initiate numerous contacts with police officers and then continue to complain about the results afterwards, in terms of not getting the result they thought that it should be.
So it's kind of scaffolding.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
Okay, onto the travel log, you can see it in front of you, OHP Board of Director meeting for myself in Burlington. And Tina and I went to the employment conference in Richmond Hill, so just divide that by 2. And the rest are the officers and their mandated training. And that's everything from me, Mr. Chair.
Any questions or comments? Okay,
You have a question on the screen?
question on the screen. Oh, Sunny, welcome, Sunny. I didn't see you at the beginning of the meeting. Go ahead.
Turn your mic
No,
on.
your microphone. No.
I think it's he. I think
It's not muted.
Thank you.
How's that? Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I was using my headset, but I guess my headset was not didn't have a microphone attached to it. Sorry about that. Thanks for the time here, folks. Good afternoon, everybody. Chief, just had a couple of quick questions. I want to make sure I'm looking at the same numbers that you're giving us. From what I heard, great news. We've got a lot of decreases in the classifications of violent crime. So we're looking at robberies down 44%, weapons down 30%, and just a slight increase in assault and sexual assault of 10% each. Is that kind of what we're?
I have to go back, Sonny.
Yeah, that's just the quick notes I wrote down. And is that? And maybe this is maybe.
Were you
Sarah can help.
talking, if you don't mind, are you talking year to date, like a comparator between the 2 years or the
Yeah, the
month of
first numbers you
January?
gave.
Okay, year to date or total comparators? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so is that, so you're saying, is that for the year that's passed?
Yeah, so what
Yep,
you have
okay.
on your screen here, just make sure it's the one, if you pull it down a bit.
Yep,
Uh,
yeah, so, there we go.
so the year-end stats are comparing 22 stats to 21 stats.
Okay.
And yes, whatever you see down there in the change category, Sonny, would
Yep.
be indicative of one year to the next.
Okay, so and the reason I ask, it looks like there's a lot of decrease, which is fantastic to hear. Thank you for that, for the hard work on that. But the reason I ask is because earlier this year we heard a report of an increase of 80% in violent crime in our community, and now I'm seeing a significant decrease in this report.
Well, if you're referring to my comments at council,
Well, January 24th-ish, I think it was, there was a report that violent crime had increased 80% in the Sioux.
well, that was over the 5 years that I've looked at violent crime, yes. Not
So it's
year to
not-
year.
All right, so okay, okay, so sorry, and I'm trying to look at that report right now that's up. Okay. Violent crime up 80%, but that's not in relation to 1 year then. That's in relation to a 5-year trend, is that?
I don't know what you're looking at. I can only
Okay,
tell you.
CTV, CBC News, January 24th, report that violent crime is up 80%, Sault Ste. Marie, 4 murders, 4 attempt murders, 36 arsons this past year. So it sounds like, just from the quote, it sounds like it's 80% in a year.
I can't comment on what the CBC reported, but I can tell you, and I've been very public about it, that violent crime over the last 5 years has increased 80%. And that was presented at several board meetings through the year and the
Okay.
previous.
Yeah, so it's not a year trend, it's a 5-year trend.
You
So
can
maybe
see
down
the
this year, but over a 5-year, it's still up.
You can see the year trend in front of you, 21 to 22.
Yep, perfect. So yeah, okay, good. So the 80, so hopefully then the 80% will come down, but it's 80% over 5, down significantly this year, but unfortunately we still have an increase over 5 years.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Perfect, thank you. Do we know what that's attributed to?
Well, yes. The service has been very public about the increase in the use of firearms, the increase in the use of weaponry in this city, and the increase in drugs. And the majority of these occurrences, you would know from your past, are usually coming from a subcategory of people in the drug industry that have to use violence as a way to live. And we have seen that increase practically and through evidence of data to show that communities today are more dangerous than they were before. In fact, if you look at what the CACP had a press conference yesterday with the premiers of Canada saying policing has significantly changed in the last 5 to 10 years. And unfortunately, the Sioux is no different in the sense that we can all account, in fact, your old colleagues will be able to say it's not the same policing as it was 4 years ago. It's much more dangerous. Weaponry is much more common. Gun calls are much more common. And therefore, a lot of that information gets displayed in your data. And when you see it in your data, that's where, we went to the board, and the board has been very helpful in giving us more members to combat that. Because as you know, violent crime is a very expensive, when you're dealing with attempt homicides, level 3s, point firearms, it's a much more extensive labor issue. And therefore, we need more officers to respond. Excuse me.
Yeah, so I mean, my hope is that we can find the root cause of these things to attack them, not necessarily from a frontline policing perspective, but from a community perspective to find ways to address them. And I recognize and realize we've talked at length, and certainly I've been a part of the conversations talking about C-75 and talking about opioid issues and things that are challenging to our community. But of course, when we see an 80% increase in violent crime over 5 years, the community is going to ask, what are we doing about that? So it's very exciting to see that there is a decrease in a lot of these numbers. So I recognize you probably can't share some of the techniques because they're police techniques and we don't want to share them publicly. But is there something you can share with us that is an initiative that we're doing to see those numbers come down, or something we can do in the community to help those numbers come down?
So, as we know, crimes of violence are an outcome of a core issue.
Mhm.
And you have long-term drug addiction, you have mental health, and you have homelessness pillars. And those three pillars are all contributing to it. But in my last 5 years, the city has been very proactive. You have the Downtown Ambassador Program that deals with people in crisis, and they get to the scene, they deal with the individual, and try to prevent them from going into a crisis situation that requires the police. We have the Downtown Wellness Bus that services those people that need that extra little help before they go into crisis. We have the Downtown Association has, security services in the downtown core. Some hotels have had additional security services to identify these situations before they go off-site. So, in fairness to your question, all municipalities are struggling with this issue. And the Soo has, through council, through the Mental Health Association, through the policing, through SEPTED, through crime prevention, all tried to tackle this issue. But at the end of the day, the issue still remains. You have a core group of very vulnerable people that are in an industry that violence is a part of. And we all have to collectively improve our response to that, including the police.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Pina, if we can have more on the agenda, I think we can continue this conversation if we wish after the meeting. But I do have some more business to contend to. So if you can limit.
So we can put it under new business. I'll wait.
Pardon?
Sure, we can do it under new business. I'll wait for that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, new business. Chief, you had a couple items?
No, I think
Go
we're
ahead,
done.
Lisa, I'm sorry.
That's
Yes.
okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief, just wanted to get an update if possible. In the March 18th article in the Sault Star, you're talking about the third-party review, which was a resolution brought forth here and at council, talking about efficiencies with technology and possible partnerships and that sort of thing, and that you were going to report to the mayor and CEO. So I'm just wondering if there's any updates or any information to add on the status of that third-party review.
So that would be on the civilian review.
Yeah.
Yes. And we have a meeting scheduled in the next month.
Okay.
With Mr. Mayor and the CAO to discuss and actually go over that.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Any other new business? Okay. Mr. Spina, certainly, if we do have another part to the meeting as well, I can grant you one more question and then we can have the conversation after with the chief as well. How would you like to do it? Either way.
Thank you for that. Either that or I can just put my thoughts in an email and send them to you and we can address them that way. The only further question I have, I'll let you know, and perhaps in the interest of time, you may have to respond after. It appears that the 80% increase in violent crime is contemporaneous with the services withdrawal from community-based policing initiatives. And I just wanted to have full context on that, but that may require some additional information, which I understand, and I'd be more than willing to just send it to you in an email and see if we can get any kind of information afterwards.
Mr. Spina, thank you for that, and please forward it to me, and then I will forward it to the chief. I appreciate your questions this afternoon.
Okay. Thank you so much, folks.
Thank you. Tom, are you good with questions?
You mean, do I have any questions, you mean?
Yes, do you have any questions? I wanted to give you the opportunity as well.
Not on the chief's presentation, no. I've got other questions, but I'll save it for the closed meeting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, seeing no other questions or comments, I need a mover to adjourn the meeting. Marchie, seconder, please. Yeah. The regular meeting is adjourned and the board enter into the caucus meeting.